He had no idea. Not that this was his final morning of freedom. Not that the van beside him held armed men trained for silence. Not that across the world a chain of decisions had been set in motion just to bring him to this exact curb. It took 90 seconds, no shots, no shouting, and when it was over, one of the FBI's most wanted was simply gone. But to understand why he was taken, you have to understand who he was. August 7th, 1998. Two nearly simultaneous explosions tore through U.S. embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. 213 dead, thousands wounded. It was one of al-Qaeda's first major attacks against America. Among the planners, a soft-spoken, highly intelligent Libyan man, Nazi Abdulhamid al-Ruqai, known to U.S. intelligence as Abu Anas al-Liby. He was a computer engineer, a surveillance expert, a ghost. He allegedly took the photos, drew the maps, marked the soft spots, then disappeared. For years, he vanished into the jihadist underworld, Sudan, Afghanistan, maybe even Iran. He became a rumor, a case file, but he wasn't forgotten. And then, Libya fell. With Gaddafi gone and chaos rising, old names began resurfacing, among them, Abu Anas al-Liby. He was home again, not in hiding, not in disguise. He lived in an upscale district in Tripoli, under his real name, a villa, a family, a daily walk to dawn prayer. The CIA watched, day after day, analyzing his routines, matching his face, verifying the pattern of life. He prayed at 6 a.m., he returned home by 6:30. He was consistent, predictable, and that made him vulnerable. He wasn't just a former terrorist, he was still active. Signals suggested he was rebuilding old networks in Libya, connections to weapons, fighters, encrypted channels, and that changed everything. The decision was made. He wouldn't be droned, he wouldn't be assassinated, he'd be captured, alive, but this would not be an ordinary arrest. This would require specialists. Delta Force, the U.S. Army's most secretive direct action unit, officially known as 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. They don't do patrols, they do the missions no one else is allowed to touch. Their objective? Snatch a high-value target from the streets of a foreign capital without alerting local forces, without harming civilians, without leaving a trace. It would take weeks of planning, dozens of dry runs, and interagency trust that rarely comes easy. The CIA provided intelligence, tripwires, camera placements, neighborhood layout. The FBI was embedded too because this wasn't just military, this was legal. They needed to collect evidence, ID the suspect, and prepare him for trial. Meanwhile, 30 miles off Libya's coast, the USS San Antonio waited quietly. It would serve as the floating black site interrogation, medical holding, everything prepared. All that remained was execution. In the final days before the raid, the team rehearsed relentlessly. Street layout memorized, approach routes checked, escape routes covered, timing drilled to the second, and still they waited. Because timing is everything. Saturday, October 5th, 2013. The call to prayer rang out across Tripoli. Nazi al-Ruqai walked the same route he always did. Alone, unarmed, unaware. He entered the mosque, he prayed, he left. At 6:30 a.m., he turned onto a street, and as he slowed to park, the trap began to tighten. A van pulled forward, another vehicle angled in, a third covered the rear. Doors unlocked, gloved hands readied, and the moment of capture was seconds away. It took years to find him, months to plan, and now all that stood between this man and his freedom was a single, well-practiced move. If the world saw only 90 seconds of the Delta Force raid in Tripoli, it missed the hundreds of hours that made it possible. Before they captured Abu Anas al-Liby, Delta's operators trained for every second of that mission, from the moment his Toyota pulled into view to the instant he was boxed, cuffed, and gone. Delta Force doesn't just train for combat, they train for surgical extractions, for low-visibility takedowns, for moments when stealth must replace firepower, and when it comes to vehicle interdiction, the art of stopping a moving or stationary vehicle, seizing the occupant and exfiltrating undetected, there's no one better. The technique is known as a box-in. The concept is simple, execution is not. One vehicle pulls in front, another behind, a third alongside, all at once, doors open, operators surge. The target has no time to run, fight, or react. But in reality, timing is everything. Seconds too early and the mark bolts. Too late and you risk exposure, escalation, or worse. To prepare for Tripoli, Delta operators ran dozens of these rehearsals. They used vehicles matching Libyan traffic profiles, replicated road widths, recreated al-Liby's street using satellite data. They even tracked sunlight angles for time-of-day realism. They didn't just train to stop his car, they trained to stop him. Vehicle interdiction, especially abroad, requires layers of skill, disguise and misdirection, language and body control, urban driving precision, close quarters grappling, immediate threat triage, rapid vehicle scanning. Delta Force trains for these with brutal repetition at Fort Bragg and at remote sites across the country. In the weeks leading up to October 2013, this particular troop trained under unique conditions. They had the objective, they had al-Liby's routine, they had drone footage, and they had pressure the intelligence window was closing. This mission wasn't about firepower, it was about data. Al-Liby wasn't just a fugitive, he was a vault of terror networks, safe houses, future plots. He couldn't die, he couldn't vanish, he had to be seized clean. That meant no bullets, no broken glass, no headlines, until it was done. To the Libyan public, these men would look like local security. Civilian clothes, unmarked vans, radios concealed in jacket cuffs, weapons suppressed and hidden. But inside, Tier 1 precision. Surveillance had tracked al-Liby for months. The CIA's Special Activities Division had him under a tight net. His mosque visits, his traffic habits, his walking pace, even his route deviations. At 6:30 a.m. every morning, he returned from prayer in the same neighborhood on the same street, and that's where the box-in would happen. Delta teams arrived in country well ahead of the strike. Using diplomatic cover, military charters, and compartmentalized travel routes, they assembled in safe houses across Tripoli, some embedded with CIA handlers, others staged out of a secure U.S. facility. Weapons were customized, no optics, no foregrips, plain black Glocks and M4s. Civilian dress was layered, light button-ups over concealed armor. Extraction coordination came from offshore. The USS San Antonio, an amphibious transport dock ship, lingered in international waters. Its role? Detainee processing, helicopter landing deck, medical bay, and most importantly, a floating sovereign slice of U.S. soil. Though never officially confirmed, the insertion likely used civilian vehicles acquired in-country, exfil, possibly a C-130 or military rotorcraft routed to a remote Libyan strip, then back to the San Antonio. Above them, ISR drones loitered high, providing overwatch, watching for threats, feeding live intel. Then came October 5th, 6:28 a.m. The target entered his car. As expected, 3 Delta vehicles converged, front blocker, rear blocker, left flank van. Al-Liby stopped, no time to react, Delta moved. One command in Arabic, one controlled takedown. No weapons drawn, no crowd. The van door closed, al-Liby inside. It was over in less than 90 seconds. From the street to safe house to airfield, the timeline moved like clockwork. The captured high-value target was brought to the U.S. warship within hours. Aboard, he was medically evaluated, photographed, debriefed, then interrogated in a maritime holding cell. Back in Tripoli, the morning continued. Locals found a car left abandoned, no sirens, no body. It wasn't until Washington confirmed the strike that Libya realized the U.S. had entered, acted, and exited in silence. It wasn't until Washington confirmed the strike that Libya realized the U.S. had entered, acted, and exited in silence. Delta trains not to improvise, they train so precisely reality bends to their rehearsal. When it came time to seize a man tied to the deaths of hundreds, they didn't knock down doors. They opened a van door, reached in, and vanished. When Delta Force disappeared into the streets of Tripoli, the world woke up in shock. News agencies scrambled for details. Libyan officials demanded answers. And in Washington, the message was clear. Abu Anas al-Liby was in U.S. custody. The United States will never stop in its effort to hold accountable those who conduct acts of terror. With those words, the fog of secrecy began to lift. Al-Liby wasn't just any target. He was one of the FBI's most wanted men, indicted for his role in the 1998 bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania attacks that killed 224 people and wounded thousands. His arrest marked the culmination of a 15-year manhunt, but it also triggered a political storm. In Libya, the backlash was immediate. The transitional government claimed ignorance, Protesters called it a kidnapping. Parliamentarians accused the West of violating national pride. Behind closed doors, the reality was more complex. Sources later confirmed the Libyan government had been quietly informed, but plausible deniability was baked in for both sides. The U.S. needed the operation to appear autonomous. Libya needed to save face. On board the USS San Antonio, al-Liby underwent initial questioning. He was given medical care, his rights were read, but legal debate raged back home. Was this a lawful capture under the AUMF? Should he be tried in a military court or brought to U.S. soil for civilian trial? The Obama administration chose the latter. On October 15, 2013, Abu Anas al-Liby arrived in New York. He was arraigned in federal court and pleaded not guilty. His presence in a civilian court set precedent that terror suspects captured abroad, even by elite military units, could be tried under American criminal law. But fate had other plans. In 2015, before the trial concluded, al-Liby died from complications related to liver cancer. He never saw a verdict, never faced sentencing. Some criticized the operation's end result. Others viewed it as proof of American reach. But for the intelligence community, it sent another message. The U.S. could strike with surgical precision even in a fragile ally's capital. The raid reshaped how future missions were greenlit. It reinforced the value of long-term human intelligence, interagency collaboration, and ISR integration. It also proved that Delta Force wasn't limited to active war zones. Urban, daylight, politically sensitive, still possible. Globally, allies took note. NATO intelligence officials cited the raid as a model of low-visibility operations. Training requests surged. Even rival powers acknowledged the reach of American special operations. In Moscow and Beijing, the raid reinforced suspicions. The U.S. had operational claws far beyond declared battlefields. For survivors of the embassy attacks, the mission offered something else: closure. Al-Liby had long escaped justice. For many, his capture, even without a verdict, was an act of accountability, a signal that time and distance do not shield the guilty. The Tripoli raid became a template: quick deployment, interagency fusion, no escalation. Its legacy wasn't just the man it captured, it was the message it sent, that the United States could and would reach into the shadows, even when the world wasn't looking. No headlines, no explosions, just a door opening and the quiet weight of justice arriving.